G'day guys, welcome back to another tipping video on the channel. This week I'll be going through my round 10 predictions for our indigenous round, and I'll also go over what occurred in round 9. So yeah, let's get straight into it. Obviously starting off, the first game of last round was Richmond versus Geelong, and Richmond in an upset managed to get over the line in the Cats, and yeah, they might be back. Obviously I tipped Geelong, so I got that one incorrect. Gold Coast versus Eagles. Pretty obviously, Gold Coast won that game. I wasn't expecting them to win it by that much, though. Sydney versus Freo, another upset. Fremantle getting the job done. Sydney, gee, they're in trouble, aren't they? North Melbourne v Port, pretty obvious that Port were going to win that one, and they won it big too, which is good for them. Hawthorn versus Melbourne, again, pretty obvious that Melbourne were going to win that. Again, very, very close to getting the tip. Correct, I got the margin nearly correct. 55 points I tipped it by, and they won by 54, so very, very close. Brisbane v Essendon, Brisbane got the job done, with Essendon's injuries, of course. And I did tip Carlton, unfortunately, and the Dogs did get the job done in that one, so not too happy with that. But yeah, pretty happy that I tipped Adelaide against St Kilda, because I know majority of people probably tip St Kilda. Adelaide, a very, very good team at home, and yeah, happy with that tip, and also happy with the way Collingwood performed on Mother's Day, getting the big win over the Giants. Yeah, my big calls. A pretty interesting week for my big calls, to be honest. My first one was pretty wrong. Tigers kicked 10 or less goals for the game. They kicked 14 or 15, so yeah, not quite there. In the Gold Coast versus West Coast game, I predicted the Suns to have 5 players with 10 or more marks, and they only had the one, and that was the intercept king of that game in Charlie Ballard. But yeah, unfortunately got that one incorrect as well. Sydney versus Freo, I predicted Freo to take 100 more or more marks. They got 94, very, very close. They had about 52 at half time, so it was looking pretty probable, but unfortunately didn't happen. And North versus West Coast, I predicted 10 or more Port players to kick 2 or more goals. Yeah, well, that was obviously going to be tricky, and I think 5 or 6 of them got to that point, and they're not the usual goal kickers as well. Obviously, apart from Finlayson, pretty unusual goal kickers for Port. In Melbourne versus Hawthorn, I predicted Melbourne to have a run of 6 or more goals in a row. I do like doing that big call, especially for the Dees, and I obviously got that one correct. Melbourne kicked the first 6 goals of the game, so pretty happy with that one. And in the Brisbane versus Essendon game, I tipped Charlie Cameron to kick 4 more goals. I don't think he even kicked any. He may have kicked one. McGrath was sensational on him, and he did miss a few easy ones. Just wasn't his night, really. In the Carlton versus Bulldogs game, I predicted Carlton to be in front for the entire match, and they were down for most of it. They did put a pretty good comeback, though, but they choked it again at the end. So, yeah, obviously got that one pretty wrong. And St Kilda versus Adelaide, I predicted both teams to get 190 or more points, and that was correct thanks to Adelaide's big score. I wasn't expecting that, but what I was expecting, though, is both teams to score very, very high. Adelaide did, St Kilda did not. Collingwood versus GWS, I predicted Digo would have 35 or more disposals and 2 or more goals. He kicked the goal and had 31, I think, so pretty good. Pretty good effort. So yeah, got the 6 out of 9 tips. Not bad, pretty average, really. Especially this round seeming I probably should have gotten the Bulldogs one correct. So yeah, pretty unfortunate. And 2 out of 9 for my big calls, with a few interesting ones in there. So yeah, not great, but better than nothing, I guess. But yeah, let's get straight into Indigenous round. My predictions for Indigenous rounds. I'll have an Indigenous Guernsey tier ranking coming out pretty soon on the channel too, so look out for that. But anyways, Port Adelaide versus Melbourne, or Nam versus whatever Port's name is. I can't pronounce it properly. Opening round of Indigenous round. Opening game, sorry. Gonna be a cracker as well. at Adelaide Oval, Port's home ground advantage. I'll start with Port. Obviously they had that very, very good game with North. Yeah, interesting. Not too much to take out of it really for them. Jeremy Finlayson was very good, kicked 3 goals 5. Miles Bergman was very good in defence. They've really found a good player there. Good size, good power, great marker. And yeah, they've definitely got a good player there on their hands. But yeah, everyone really fired for Port. They looked very, very attacking. Zach Butters was obviously sensational. He's having an amazing season, and here's the barometer. If you stop Butters, you can probably stop Port. So that's what Melbourne have got to do. Did they put a tag to him? Possibly. But yeah, not really too much to take out of that game for Port. Another one is Todd Marshall is ruled out with concussion. That's the second time in 3 weeks. That's just disastrous for him. And Charlie Dixon doesn't look like he's going to play. So, yeah, it's pretty bad for Port. But Melbourne, they had a very, very good game as well against Hawthorn. Not really too much to take out of it. They weren't great in that third quarter, but they had a very solid response in the fourth term, and they still won the game by 60 points. It's all they really needed to do. Petrarca has been cleared to play, which is good news for them. Christian Salem looks set to return for his first game of the season, whether it's in the AFL or VFL, that's up to them. Probably in the VFL at this rate. And Harrison Petty, who looked very, very good early on in that game, was also subbed out injured. So, few injuries for these two teams. But yeah, they were very, very good in that game. Melbourne just had so many good players all around the ballpark. They were very, very good. Smashed in clearances early on. That's where they won the game. Look, I want to tip Port, and I've been thinking about it for days now, this game. It's going to be an absolute ripper, but you got to go safe with Melbourne, seeming Port's big injury, big tall injury stocks are getting pretty thin. So I go Melbourne by 7 points. My big call, there are 10 or more lead changes in the game. Now, a pretty boring one this. Sydney versus North Melbourne, definitely the most unappealing, and well, maybe not, but the second most unappealing game of the round. Sydney have been in awful form, so has North really, but Sydney, it's just more shocking really, because obviously they have so much injuries. Mills and McDonald added to that injury this week. They're not really getting too many players returning. Their defence is just getting thinner and thinner. Their forward line's starting to misfire, except for Papley. Heaney and Buddy are just out of form at the moment. Hayward's missing goals. Yeah, it's just not going well for Sydney. The positive was that Hickey made his return though. And for North, well, they just got a carnage injury list now. 5 or 6 players have been ruled out, and one of them being suspension to Aiden Core. And yeah, look, the big one really was Davey Juniak. He's really the big one there. Out for a month, pretty bad. Marnie's out for the season, so that's another one for North. But yeah, look, Sydney got to go safe here. 30 points, should win it. My big call, both teams score less than 30 points. Both teams score less than 30. It's a little bit confusing, that big call, for the first half. And yeah, definitely the much more appealing matchup on the Saturday. We've got Western Bulldogs taking on the Crows. Now, this is going to be an absolute beauty. Down at Mars, it was a beauty last year, so why can't it be a beauty again this year? Both teams are in pretty good form. The Crows, they were just fantastic last week against the Saints. Their forward line is definitely the most dangerous in the comp, because you have players, kicking 2 to 3 goals every single game. Tex is kicking 5. He's in great form. Their defence is very, very solid. They perform very, very, very well without Murray. Though Duday is out this week with concussion, so there'll be a switcheroo there in defence. And the Dogs, they were very, very good last week. Probably should have tipped them. Their defence was very, very good against Carlton. Carlton didn't really want to move the ball, which made it go into the Dogs' terms, really, and that's how they managed to control the game. They're very, very good at Marvel as well. And even with Chilor out, didn't really affect them at all in the midfield. Their forward line was pretty solid again. And yeah, look, it's a bit of a 50-50 one because it is at Mars, but I'm going to go Adelaide. but they've got to win away from home. They've got to win away from home this season. Adelaide by 12 points. My big call, Jordan Dawson gets 30 or more disposals, continuing his red-hot form to the season. Next, we got Geelong versus, well, whatever Fremantle's name is again. I forgot. It's like Wallyup or something. I'll just call him Freo. Obviously, being at Fremantle's home ground, not expecting too much in this game. Obviously, Geelong have a huge injury list now. Possibly could get Stengel back for this one. Jack Henry might play as well, whether it's AFL or VFL. Again, that's up to Chris Scott. But his brother Ollie Henry's been ruled out. So a bit of issues there. Dangerfield's still a little while away. Freo, they were alright last week. Back-to-back weeks, they scored over 100 points. First time since 2016. So that is positive signs for Freo. Tracy, Amos, Jackson was solid. He was amazing, actually, for the second week in a row. Tracy and Amos was solid. Their forward line was very, very good. Schultz was dangerous. Very, very great signs very, very, very good signs for Freo there, and their defence held up pretty nice in the first half. Got to go Geelong though, even though they've got a big injury list. By 19 points, hoping it's a good game though. My big call, Freo lead for 55% of the match. I think they'll be in this game. Now, this one I'm not going to spend too much time about. Brisbane versus Gold Coast up at the Gabba. Mate, because it's at the Gabba, Gold Coast really have no chance. Let's be real. They were very, very good last week. Their defence was sensational. Charlie Ballard took 10 or 11 intercept marks. If he did take 11, it would have been the record, so we probably would have been hearing a bit more about it. So he probably took 10, but he was amazing. It was sensational down there. Obviously, Oscar Allen was the only real forward that got out of hand for West Coast, and another low score for them, 43. Teams are struggling to score against Gold Coast now. You got Richmond a few weeks ago. Melbourne were able to score, but Gold Coast did a very good job in the second half. But they're up against the best forward line in the comp, so this will really test their defence. Sean Lehman's obviously going to have the job on Charlie Cameron, and he's flying at the moment. Didn't do so well last week, but it was Joe Danaher that stepped up, playing on a younger Kane Baldwin. Was always going to kick more than 4, and kick 6. So, sensational from Joe. Hopefully he can continue his red-hot form. Their midfield was very, very good. And like what the commentators really said, they found another way to win. They went past the Bombers, they went past their scrappiness and found a different way to win. That's why I think Brisbane are definitely going to be one of the main contenders this season. I'll go them by 56 points. My big call, Lions kick 20 or more goals. They're going to dominate the Suns in this one. And then definitely everyone's going to be tuning into this one. I think it's already sold out. Richmond versus Essendon for the dream time at the G. Should be an absolute beauty, this one. Richmond obviously have the last 13 wins against Essendon. So Essendon will be down to in that record, obviously. Seeming it's just starting to get ridiculous. Lynch is still a while away for Richmond. But the positive sign was they kicked over 100 points. Who would have thought they would have done that with Lynch out? So that's just the big positive. Dusty was great. Kicked 4 goals. Shai Bolton, that move into the midfield has really, really sparked something. He needs to stay in there. Dimmer's got to realise and keep Shai Bolton in the midfield and let him push forward because it makes a big impact on their team. I saw it last week. I saw it against West Coast. It just makes a massive difference. It allows Prestia to go forward and Cochin, and they were both sensational against Geelong as well. Jack Rewalt, great form. Mansell was solid. The whole team was very, very solid. They've got to keep performing like that, though, Richmond. People were saying if they keep performing like that, they're definitely a top 8 chance. But they've got to earn trust back. Do we trust them? That's the big decision. Essendon obviously have big injuries. Kelly, Ridley, possibly back this week. Parrish is still a month away. That's just huge for Essendon. But yeah, last week, their defence struggled, except for Zerk-Thatcher. It was very, very good. Very, very good. Kept Gunston to no goals. Just sensational from him. Helped against Hipwood as well. So very, very good from him. And yeah, their forward line just struggled, and especially in that second half. They turned it into a bit of a scrap. Will they do it this week? Doubt it. I'll go Richmond in a thriller by 3 points. Just saw more from them last week. But you can go Essendon. Most people probably go on Essendon, actually. My big call, both teams combined for 180 plus points or more. Will be high scoring. And then, well, I won't take too much time for this game. We all know how bad it's going to be. West Coast versus Hawthorn. It's going to be disastrous, isn't it? Anyways, both teams have been crap this season. Positive for West Coast, Oscar Allen's doing amazing. Obviously, the bad news is Darling's out injured. Jermaine Jones is out injured. It's just going to get really, really bad for them. The defence is just not working properly. Their leaders are out. That's why. Even Tom Barras, he's just struggling. He just can't, I guess, play on everyone, can he? The player that he does play on normally did pretty well. He did a pretty good job last week again. So, yeah, apart from him, no one else is really firing for West Coast. And Hawthorn, well, yeah, they weren't great last week either. Their midfield just somehow keeps on finding ways to win the footy. They were good in the third quarter. They kicked 5 goals in the first half of that third term. So if they can keep doing that, they should win. Because it's down in Tassie, I'm going Hawthorn by 15 points. My big call, Oscar Allen and Mitch Lewis combined for 7 or more goals. And then, probably game of the round, in most people's eyes, Carlton taking on Collingwood at the MCG. Going to be over 90,000, hopefully. Already sold out. Carlton, I'll start with them. Look, yeah, they've had a pretty frustrating start to the season, haven't they? And yeah, their form at the moment, excluding the West Coast game, has been absolutely horrible, absolutely atrocious. Apart from Collingwood's form, though, it's just been sensational. Every single player fired last week against the Giants. Forward line's just ticking. Mason Cox, we all know how good he was last week. Possibly with a few players returning soon. Defence was very, very good. Moore played very, very well. Injured. Noble was also carrying a little bit of an injury and also played very, very well. Midfield was very, very dominant. Jordan Ngoe, obviously, like I said, was probably best on, apart from Mason Cox, obviously. N.daicos as well, 41 touches again. Just sensational. I mean, it always helps when your opponent has 25 tackles. I mean, come on. Carlton, yeah, look, not much really to say about them, but their ball movement was pretty sloppy, though it did obviously pick up at the start of the second half. They were a lot better. They just need to get it into Mackay and Curno's hands a lot more. That would have definitely improved their chances of winning, especially in the final quarter. When you kick 1 goal in the first half, it's always going to be pretty tricky, isn't it? And yeah, there's just something about Carlton at the moment that just isn't, getting people up and about. Their fans are just very, very disappointed as well. And yeah, I'm going to go Collingwood in this one pretty comfortably, actually, by 31 points. My big call, N.daicos has 35 or more disposals. It was coming eventually. I rarely do this big call. I think I need to do it more because I'm just easily going to get a big call correct. Did Carlton tag him though? Look, they probably will, but hopefully he can get it. And then the final game of the round, it's St Kilda versus GWS at Giants Stadium. I think the Saints fans are starting to get a little bit scared because their season is starting to look pretty similar to last season's. You know, they had that close loss to Port and then a not so convincing win to North. And then last week they had a shocking performance against Adelaide. Starting to look pretty similar to last season. Obviously, if I can get this win, it would be pretty much the exact same, I think, as last season, or almost. But yeah, they've just got to continue getting players back, bringing up form. Obviously, Memory's out with concussion, bit of a blow. King does come back in though, so that's a positive. I think Ross Lyons also said that Jimmy Webster and Jade Gresham will also play, so that definitely does help. Yeah, their ball movement wasn't so good in this game, to be honest. I think Adelaide shut that down very, very well. I think they realised that their defence is key to winning games, and they completely shut it down. Wilkie as well, who's probably been the Saints' best this season, was very, very quiet and didn't have his usual day out with the 5 to 10 intercepts. And GWS, well, yeah, they were horrid last week. 25 tackles. There was a few standalone players that were good. Cornelio, Whitfield, Callaghan. But apart from that, yeah, they were just really, really, really bad. Got smashed in the first half by clearances, around the stoppages, disposals. Obviously, tackles having 25 for the game. Like, that's just disastrous. And I think Adam Kingsley would be pretty furious with his side's performance, especially seeming they haven't been smashed by more than 21 points this season. Obviously, that was their biggest loss to the Brisbane Lions back in round 7 now, I believe, or something like that, or round 6 maybe. But yeah, look, pretty bad. Pretty sad too for the Giants. St Kilda, they've been pretty good for majority of the season. They've hit a bit of a not so good patch. They did have a purple patch at the start of the season though. If they can get a few of their players firing, then maybe they can get a big win here. Though it is at Giant Stadium, the Giants, they haven't been smashed there at all. They actually beat Adelaide there. Does that give them a chance? Look, yes, I guess. They've just got to get their tackling up. That's all I can say. But yeah, I'll go St Kilda by 20 points in this one. You got to go safe. I'm not going to go brave and tip the Giants, even though I feel like they could win. My big call, Jack Higgins kicks 3 or more goals. I also think it'll be an absolute ripper of a contest as well. To include the first round of Indigenous round, obviously next round there'll be Indigenous round as well. So yeah, stay tuned for next week where I'll be doing my tips and my Collingwood review of the game against Carlton, and also look out for my Indigenous Guernsey tier list coming out very, very soon on the channel as well.